Hi, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. So we have a small crew in the room today, but as we were thinking, we have more people on the webinar because it's cold out there. So just this is my own personal curiosity. How many of you are actual born and bred Southerners? Oh, more than I thought. Okay. I thought it would all be like people from New York and above coming to the meeting today and everybody else dialing in through the webinar, but my theory was wrong. So it's been a while since we've got together. It's been since November, and thanks for everybody for coming out today. Just as a reminder, we are recording the webinar, recording this today and projecting it as a webinar. So just remember that, you guys came out and heard the content, but if there's anything you want to refer back to, this recording will be available on the CC Info website in a couple of days. Okay, so for those of you who are joining on webinar, just put a note in chat if you can't hear us. We're having just a little challenge with the sound today, but we think we have a solution, but just let us know. Okay, and so also wanted to mention that we used to do these user group meetings every month, but we switched to going to every other month. So we'll see you guys again in a couple of months. So we're alternating. One month we'll have a meeting on a finance topic, and the next month we'll have a meeting on an HR topic. Okay? All right. So, so the topics that we're going to cover today are, we have Marty Berkerson here today to talk about effort reporting, so the eCert project that he's working on. Corey Mims is here today to talk about two topics. She's going to talk about retroactive pay and EPA recruitments and hires. I'm sorry? 3 times. Oh, then she's back. Yeah. You cannot get enough of Corey. That is always true. So we're glad she's here. Then I'm going to get up and talk a little bit about the online help that's available in Connect Carolina. Then Corey will be back to talk about HR reminders. I like that, various HR reminders, a variety of HR reminders. And Brian Simmet is back again today, which we're glad of. He's going to talk about, give you some reminders related to PAT and also the online tax forms. And then we should have some time for questions at the end, so please, ask as we go, or also we'll save some time at the end to answer your questions as well. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Marty. So we have to stand at the computer.
So, good morning. What I wanted to talk to you briefly about today, and hopefully some of you do know, some of you may not, about effort reporting and the need for effort reporting, or you may have received messages from eCert Help or me about effort reporting. But effort reporting is basically the university's way of justifying to their sponsors for research, basically, the charges that are expended on sponsored projects. So effort reporting is the way that the university says, okay, this is the way that your researchers, faculty, et cetera, here at UNC had spent their time over projects during a period of performance. So currently, well, back in 2010, I implemented the original eCert system, and now we are in the process of upgrading to version 5.1. Version 5.1 is hopefully going live this afternoon, assuming that I can get single sign-on to work. So we will see about that. But basically, just want to talk real quickly. High level, effort reporting here is still a very hot topic and an audit risk. The 2014 A133 audit for the university had a finding for timeliness of effort certifications. And then moving forward now into 2015, most likely there will be a finding as well. That report has not been issued yet. However, effort certifications have not been done since June 30th of 2014. And per university policy, they're supposed to be done no less frequently than every 6 months. So we're now 19 months later, so most likely there will be a finding for timeliness again in 2015. This is a big deal because that actually this audit is available to all of the university's sponsors, so NIH, NSF, any subcontracts that the university is receiving from other institutions. This audit is readily available to them, and they start to knock on the door and ask questions, et cetera, as to where the effort certifications are. So as part of the rollout of the upgrade, we are implementing a new effort reporting policy that will have an escalation process for outstanding effort statements. And then any uncertified effort statements, basically after the 60-day certification window, will have their sponsored funding written off to the F&A account that owns the individual. This is a very big change. So, and this is something that we've been stressing in our trainings throughout the university to make sure that individuals, you know, that the effort coordinators, the departmental individuals that are reviewing salaries, et cetera, are going through and making sure that their faculty, staff, et cetera, are certifying their effort statements once that's released. A couple other highlights about the upgraded version of the system. It is a very much more simple user interface to use. We have a very detailed effort-related transactional level payroll report that can be run by person, by project, or by specific time period and can be exported to Excel. So in our training sessions, this is something that at the department level, the effort coordinators have been really excited about because it's providing full transactional level detail from all of FY15 and the first half of FY16, assuming that the payroll information is related to effort type of earnings codes. Okay. And then just one last thing, so the timeline overall, so we are hoping, as I said, to go live this afternoon with the pre-review period. This is the time for effort coordinators to review the effort statements for all the individuals in their departments. So there's about a, it's 2.5-week period or so for pre-review. Then there will be a 30-day window for certification. At this point, we would send out emails to the certifiers to go into the system and certify for their statements. Okay, and then if they have not certified outside of that 30-day window, there will be the escalation period that I mentioned earlier. That escalation period would go to the primary effort coordinators in the department, then the chairs of the department, and finally the research teams for the school. And after the escalation through the research teams of the school, the funding would then be written off. Any questions? That was easy. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Happy New Year. I'm going to talk about retroactive pay. Retroactive pay occurs when someone receives a pay increase in a prior pay cycle. And in order for them to be paid for that increase, either the retro pay tool needs to pick that up or a remedy ticket needs to be submitted. I want to provide you with some information on how you can make that determination as to whether it'll happen automatically through the system or if a remedy ticket is necessary. I hope everyone got a handout. This was put together by Change Management, thanks Change Management, that walks you through and is a good resource and even has some examples on situations that are common and whether or not a ticket is necessary or not. So you want to ask yourself 3 questions. First, did the employee receive pay in the previous pay period or pay periods for which the retro is effective? So let's say we have an employee that's hired in October of 2014 and they got an increase in October of 2015, but it wasn't entered into the system until January of this year. So as long as that individual received pay for November, December, and January, or November and December, excuse me, October, November, and December, then the system will automatically pick up that retro pay. Was the pay received in the previous pay period or pay periods for the same info record as the retro pay? So it has to occur all on the same record. So if someone has multiple jobs, just because one goes back to a certain date doesn't necessarily mean that retro pay is going to automatically pick up. It has to be on the same info record. And lastly, is the pay frequency the same? So is the person staying in a monthly role or are they staying in a biweekly role? If the frequency changes, then a remedy ticket is necessary. So if you can answer yes to all of these, then the system will automatically pick up retro pay. If you answer no to any one of them, then a remedy ticket is necessary. An exception is retro FICA on, or retro FICA exemption. So if something goes in the system and FICA needs to be retroed back several months, submit a remedy ticket because the retro pay tool does not pick up FICA retro. So I want to go through a few examples, and again, they're more on your handout. So we have Maria. Maria's a brand new employee to UNC. She's never worked here before. And she's being hired into a paid EPA job effective January 25th. However, her EPAR did not execute until after the January payroll lockout. So is a remedy ticket necessary or not? In this case, a remedy ticket would be required because she did not receive pay for her January, in the month of January, because she missed the lockout deadline. So because she didn't get paid in January, the February pay is not going to automatically pick up the days she's owed from the 25th to the 31st. So in this case, a remedy ticket would be required. Does that make sense? Okay. So then we have Micah. Micah is a paid employee and has an annual compensation, and he should have been receiving supplemental pay on his primary job, Ample Record 0, where he has his annual compensation. However, there was a delay in getting his EPAR approved. So in this case, would a remedy ticket be necessary or not? A remedy ticket would not be necessary as long as Micah received paychecks for his Ample Record 0 back to the date that the supplemental pay is effective. Then the system will automatically pick up the retro. And then we have John. John's a paid EPA student, and he gets a secondary job with compensation, but the EPAR does not execute until after the pay period the job becomes effective. In this case, a remedy ticket would be necessary, even though he's been receiving pay on Ample Record 0. Let's just say he's been receiving pay for over a year. If he did not receive pay on that Ample Record 1 for his secondary job for those previous months, then the system would not automatically pick up his retro pay. Are there any questions about the examples or anything that you've found that would be helpful to share in these particular situations? Okay. Just a few reminders. If you're unsure if the system's going to automatically pay the retro, please submit a remedy ticket. It never hurts to check, and we're glad to look into that for you. So submit a ticket if you have any questions or unsure. Always monitor your prelim reports to ensure that you see the retro pay in the prelim. And if you don't, submit a remedy ticket as soon as possible so we can look into that before confirm. For a dock-in pay or overpayment, please submit a remedy ticket along with a payroll exception sheet. We do ask that you wait to submit that ticket until after the person's job data record has been updated to accurately reflect the picture. So if someone should have been placed on short work break but was not, and so they were overpaid, or someone's termination goes in late, make sure that that short work break action is in there or the termination action has executed and is reflected in their job data before submitting the ticket, because payroll is not going to work on a dock or an overpayment until the job data is accurately reflected. And then FICA that's retroed to a previous tax year will not be adjusted in a current tax year. So let's say today you find out that someone should have had FICA taken out or should not have had FICA taken out in 2015. That cannot be adjusted as part of the 2016 tax year. Questions on retro pay? So the EPA or EHRA recruitment transition, I have to get used to saying that. Have you all heard about this transition that's taking place next week for EPA recruitment? Okay, I think some people have, and if you haven't, then I'm going to give you an overview of it. So effective next week, EPA non-faculty, faculty, and postdoctoral scholars, both temp and permanent, are going to have recruitment and hire changes in their approval process and in workflow in both People Admin and in Connect Carolina. And essentially, the EEO or EOC office is going to be removed from the workflow in People Admin and from the Connect Carolina workflow. Effective January 27th, again, EOC will no longer approve postings, interim, or hiring proposals for EPA recruitments. However, they will continue to approve any waivers for faculty, non-faculty, or postdoctoral scholars. And in Connect Carolina, effective the same day, EOC will also be removed from the approval workflow for hire actions. So for any hire actions that are currently in the approval workflow for faculty, EPA non-faculty, they will come out of the workflow. With regard to EPA non-faculty, postings, interim, and hiring proposals will now stop at OHR employment or your employment consultant for review and approval prior to recruitment. And hiring proposals will continue to route to the EPA non-faculty office. For faculty, postings, interims, and hiring proposals will now all route to academic personnel for review and approval before posting to people admin. And postdoctoral scholars postings currently route, but hiring proposals have not been. So hiring proposals will now route to the VC research office for review and approval. So those are the changes that are taking place in people admin. Changes in the Connect Carolina workflow. EOC, again, will no longer be approving any hire EPARs. All EPA non-faculty hire EPARs will continue to route to the EPA non-faculty office, but OHR employment will not be added to the routing. So it'll just stop at EPA non-faculty office. All faculty hire EPARs, temp, perm, regardless of FTE, will go to academic personnel for review and approval. That said, they will not be approving contingent worker or your faculty zero-based no intent to pay hire actions. Postdoc hires will route to VC research, and then other EPAR routing is not going to be impacted. So job changes and terminations at this point, there's not going to be any changes to those. A quick note about the OHR employment staff. As part of this transition, they added 2 additional employment consultants to their team. And the EC assignments, as a result of having new team members, are going to be adjusted and relooked at. And those assignments will be sent out in an email to campus so you can find out who your employment consultant is. I'm sure they will reach out to you as well. Those will be distributed in an upcoming communication. And then wanted to mention, for those of you who submit SPA postings to your OHR employment consultant, you probably have seen that you have the ability to pick which employment consultant you're routing your posting to. When the transition takes place to now have your employment consultant receive the EPA non-faculty posting, interim, and hiring proposal, that same functionality will appear. So the school division that submits to the OHR employment consultant will want to pick that employment consultant from the drop-down box so it goes directly to their inbox. If it's not picked, it goes to Bob Eatman. So I'm sure he would appreciate it if it goes to the employment consultant. If it does go to the wrong person, he will always forward it on to the person it needs to go to. But just make sure that you select their name from the drop-down box. Any questions about the EPA EHRA recruitment transition? Yes.
Just in terms of the person in contact reach out to, so I understand the OHR goes for our OHR consultant. For the faculty recruitment posters in terms of etc. Do they already know who will be in the process of doing the
So the question is, does academic personnel have an assignment list of who will be approving the people admin postings, interims, and hiring proposals? I don't know the answer to that question. I know that theirs will route to a general inbox, and I don't know if the individuals in the office have specific assignments or if they work the inbox as things come in. I'm sorry. I can try and find out before we break today. Other questions? Yes.
For the employment consultant, will they also need to submit changes status and complete editors with administrative stuff?
So, yes, I would expect that if there needs to be a search committee editor added to a posting after it's posted, or adjustments need to be made to the search committee or whatever the case may be, then that you would contact your OHR employment consultant and they would make those adjustments. Other questions? Okay. I'll turn it over to Anita.
Okay, so thanks, Corey. So up next, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the online help. So how many of you have clicked the help link inside Connect Carolina? You know, one brave soul. Anybody else? One? Vicki has. Okay. Oh, okay. So that's what I'm afraid of. So many of you, it's a kind of a tiny, tiny link. So many of you may not even notice that it was there. So I want to spend a little focus on it today because it's, as we go along, it's going to be more and more handy to you because it shows you all the content that we've published for campus in training materials. So the way we actually have a tool that lets us publish to both places. So it publishes to our online help and it publishes to our training guides. It's all generated from the same original source. So the nice thing about the online help is it doesn't generate any paper or anything, and so we're able to fairly quickly update it. So we actually update it every week. So it's all the material that we have in our training guides, and it's searchable. So it's built to be searchable. So it's a little easier than flipping through a PDF of a guide. I mean, that works too, but it's all the help that we have, all the information that we have in one place, and you can search by keyword, and you can go through the table of contents as well. So kind of want to let you guys know that it exists, and let's spend a little time talking about how it works. So one important point is how do I get there? So it is in Connect Carolina, and I'll show you where that is in just a sec. But it's also on the CC Info website. So it's nice because if you're not actually working in Connect Carolina at that moment, you can have it, you can bookmark it. So let's talk about that first, how to get there. So looking for the online help from Connect Carolina, from CC Info, you go to the training tab. That makes sense, right? And then you go to resource documents. Now, for those of you who've been out to the resources page, you know there's a ton of stuff out there and it can be a little hard to find. So the quickest way to get there to find this is just to search for it. So so I'll just talk through it with you guys through screenshots. So we know that a good way to search for it is just by the Connect Carolina Actions for HR Representatives. So that's the name of the guide for HR representatives. And you use the second search box. So that won't make sense until I show you, so let me do that. So here's that page. So I went to the training tab, and I went to the resource documents, and I'm going to use the second search box. So not the one at the top, the one that's easiest to see, so you'll have to kind of train yourself. It's the one down here at the bottom. So if you're familiar with that page, it kind of tells you how it works. There's some options for choosing documents by category, and then down at the bottom are all the documents, and you can search within the documents using that search box. Okay, so I typed in my text, Connect Carolina Actions. It scrolls down. That was my scrolling PowerPoint if that's there. But I search, and it limits it to the documents that match what I search, and there near the top is the document that I'm looking for. So I'm going to click on it. And this is a protected document, so a lot of our materials are actually open to anyone who wants to come to our site, even if they don't work for UNC. But since it's HR related, and we're careful to not show personal information and that kind of thing, but still it just made sense to kind of be careful with those documents. So those are onion protected. So you click the link there to open it up. You'll have to sign in with your onion and password, and then it shows you the protected documents. And there's the web help there at the bottom. Okay, so you're thinking, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, that was way too many clicks. I'll never do this, right? But you can bookmark it once it opens up, so you only have to do this once, and then you'll have it in your browser window. So when I click on it, it opens up the help. So we'll talk a little bit about how this works in just a minute, but just wanted to let you guys know that was there, and that's a good way to find it, bookmark it, and then you'll have it at your fingertips. So. Okay, so the other way to get to it is within Connect Carolina itself. So you'll see the help link in the top right-hand corner of most screens, not all screens. So the exception is the home page, which is a little, I wish it were there, but it's not. So if you're creating an EPAR, you'll see the link there. It's just on just about every other page except for the Connect Carolina home page. So again, oops. So it opens in a new window, and so again, that's nice because you don't want to be in the middle of doing something, click the help, and have it wipe out whatever you're doing. So it does open up in a new window or a browser tab, depending on how your browser is set up. So you can leave it open and have it there while you're working if you want to. Okay, so this is the help window, and there's really two ways to use it. So it kind of depends on your personality, whether you like to search for things or if you like to kind of pick from what's there. So you can either use the table of contents or you can search by keyword. So let's just talk real quick about how to do those. So first, the table of contents. So in the top left-hand corner, all the topics are kind of broken into high-level categories. So we have human resources, which, since that's our topic of the day, that's where you'll go for those topics. There's finance documentation in there. There's a little bit of on the student side is there as well. So you just click on the topic, click on the link for the topic, and it will expand the list, and then you can click and expand, and it'll show you the topic. When you find the topic that you need, you just click on it, and it will open in the pane on the right, and you can read it. So you can, if you think about it, after this meeting, go back to your desk and kind of see what's out there. So there may be materials. Remember, this will be the most current information that we have, that is as up to date as we have. The training team has been able to keep up to that point. So again, click the links on the left, and it'll show topics on the right. Okay. So at the top of the screen, you'll see some buttons, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on these because you don't have to use them, but just wanted to show you that they were there. So there's a home button, which will always bring you back to the first page of the online help. You can refresh the page if you've been moving around a lot. You can print it. So this is nice, right? Printing's not always as easy in Connect Carolina, but the online help you can print. So it'll print whatever the current page is, and it gives you a few options. You can save favorites. So if there's something that you just don't do very often and you just want to keep the steps handy, you can save it as favorites within the online help. You can hide the navigation, so it gives you more reading room. And then you can use these arrows just like you would think to page through the topics. Okay? Any questions so far? Anybody? Okay. So just for an example, so let's say that you're not sure, you're entering a lump sum payment ETAR, and you're not sure about what date to enter into the effective date field. So again, you're in the middle of doing that. You can click the help link, which will be always in the top right-hand corner of most screens. So which screen will it not be on? Yes, okay, that's right. So not on the home page. And then you just navigate through the topic. So it's going to be an HR topic, and you see a topic that says submitting lump sum payment. So that's a likely place to go. And then you scroll down until you see the table that explains the entry that explains how to work with effective dates. Okay, so another example, you're entering a secondary job for an EPA employee and not sure what FTE to use on the Hire EPAR form. So again, you can click the help link, or maybe you'll still have it open. You're going to go to Human Resources. You can go to entering a secondary position, and you scroll down until you see the information about FTE for EPA secondary jobs. So pretty simple examples, but that's kind of how browsing the table of contents works. And it matches the training guides, so the pages will look very similar to the actual training guides. All right, so another way to go is searching, and to be honest, this is the way I like to use it. I'm more of a searcher, but there's a button on the left that says search. So if you prefer to work that way, you click search there. And so let's say, again, you want to check on a PAT adjustment to see where it is in the approval process, and you're thinking, I'm not sure which report shows me this. So again, you can click the help link, and this time instead of going through the table of contents, you can just click on search. It brings up a place where you could type a word. I type PAT and click search, and it gives me a list of topics to choose from, and then I can click on those, and it'll open up in the right side of the screen. So not too challenging there, really. I'm just trying to show you how useful this might be. Okay? All right. One other note that I just want to mention is this is relatively new, and I don't know if you guys will find value in it or not, but on the student side, they use books called People Books, And they're produced by Oracle, which is who makes our, makes Connect Careline software, people's soft software. They're fairly techy, I will say. They're not like my favorite browsing place to go when I'm curious about content, but you can find useful nuggets in there. So I'm just throwing it out there. You'll see it because it's the first thing in our list in the table of contents. So I kind of wanted to tell you what those were. But they're produced by Oracle. They're kind of like the how to set up PeopleSoft, but you can find some useful tidbits in there. So if you're curious, go out there, or you can just never look at that link again, but you'll know what it is. So any questions on the online help? Is anybody going to run out after this meeting and actually see what this is all about? If not, just to make me happy. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So thanks, and I will at this point turn it back over to Corey, the star of our show today.
I was able to get in touch with academic personnel, and they do not have specific consultants or assignments in their office. So actions will all route to their general inbox, and the staff there will take care of them as they come in. So I have a few reminders I want to go over. I'm pretty sure you all have heard me talk about these before, but since it's in a year, I thought I would mention them again. First, I want to talk about reports to and supervisor ID. Just worked with some departments on some cleanup where we had individuals that were employed, but they didn't have a reports to or a supervisor ID. So want to remind everyone that all employees must have either a reports to, which is a position number associated with their position that they're in, or they need to have a supervisor ID or an info ID on their job data records. If you have a situation where you need to remove a reports to off of someone's position, the first thing you want to do is submit a position EPAR and remove the reports to position number. Submit that action, let it execute all the way through the system, and then submit a job change or an edit existing job EPAR and add the supervisor ID back onto the person's record, and use the same effective date that you removed the reports to, so there's no break in the person having a supervisor. It's important that you wait for the position EPAR to execute before you start the job change EPAR. If you don't, when the job change EPAR hits the integration broker, the data will not be consistent from what's in your EPAR to what's on the person, and so it gets stuck. We have to send it back to you and start over again. So to save time, wait until that position EPAR executes and then submit the job change, and again use the same effective date. And of course, individuals who aren't in positions or who don't report to or who do, report to a supervisor, you can handle all of those changes just on the edit existing job EPAR. Terminations versus transfers. As this new year rolled around, we started to see some individuals who were terminated and rehired with the same effective date. And so I wanted to remind everyone that if there is no break in service and you have someone moving from one job to another, it could be temp to perm, perm to temp, SP to EPA, vice versa, and there's not a break in service, it should be done through the hire EPAR and transfer the individual from their current info record and job into the new position or job. A weekend isn't considered a break in service. If you have someone whose last day is Friday and then they're starting a new job on Monday, it would still be handled through the hire transfer. And a termination action is not needed at all in these cases. In fact, if a termination action is submitted by the department that the person's leaving and it writes through after the hire transfer, it will terminate them on top of that transfer action. So we have a way to catch those, but just be careful that a termination isn't submitted as well. And please be sure to wait until you've filled out all other fields on that first page of the hire EPAR before you check the edit existing job box that says you want to transfer someone out of a current job. If you check it too soon, it throws off comp rate information on the compensation page, and it actually will write in primary, secondary jobs inaccurately. So make sure you fill out the effective date, the job family, the employee group, and all the other data before you click that you want to edit the existing job and transfer them from one to the next. Christina?
You mentioned that the weekend is not considered to be a break in service. Is it for Connect Careline? comment, or logic thinks this way as well, so I'm not.
Well, logic thinks this way as well. In fact, it's better that you, that's one of the reasons why you want to make sure that you're transferring someone when there's not a break in service versus term and rehire, because it has reporting, benefits, and compliance issues can be associated with that, and part of the compliance is the I-9. So we've seen some issues with that. So that's another reason to do the transfer versus the term rehire. So
like the last day, if your last day from and the last day works for the new job, for the higher transfer method, was it Saturday?
I would make it effective Monday.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. So the question is, if the person's last day is Friday, do you make the hire date effective Saturday or Monday? Is that accurate? Okay. You would make, in that case, if the person's last day is a Friday, you would make their hire effective Monday. Yes.
So about the last part about the existing job.
Yes.
If you get through and you've completed the whole form and then let's say this is the bottom and I check it and I realize I need to make an edit, should I just go out and start again?
If you need, so if you've gone through the first page of the hire form, you've filled out everything and checked the edit existing job EPAR, or sorry, edit existing job box, but then you realize up above there's something else you need to edit.
Another page and go back. Should I just restart? Because I know the funding,
the compensation.
Yeah, that's the same issue.
I have not seen that same issue. So the question is, because if you hit previous on the compensation page, it will zero out compensation and it has an impact there. Does the same apply with the edit existing job checkbox? So if you check it and then need to change anything else with the form on that first page or prior, should you back out and start over again? We've not seen those same issues occur. Thank you. Other questions? And again, we look and use the system for reporting purposes. So if you have someone that terms and hires on the same day, it's not an accurate picture of what's happening with that person's employee record. It has benefits and compliance issues associated with it as well. If there is a break in service, then a termination action is required, and the department that the person's leaving should submit that termination action. And then after that action has executed, then the department that is going to be hiring that person can start the EPAR. If it started before the termination goes through, it tries to transfer the person or give them a secondary job. So that's why we ask that you wait until the termination has executed before starting that, when possible. If a termination action has been entered in the system, whether it be through an EPAR or a student or SPA temp is terminated through the auto term based on their expected job end date, and that was done in error, and instead it should be a expected end date change, or the person should be transferred instead of termed, submit a help ticket and we can back out those terminations, and then you can start or can finish the hire or the expected end date change. Terminating employees with multiple jobs. I get a report daily that reflects active employees with secondary jobs but no primary job. And several times I've seen that a person's primary job has terminated and they've resigned, left the university altogether, but then their secondary jobs remain active. So just to note that if you have somebody who's terminating, it's a good idea to check the multiple job summary or the UNC employee link to see if they have any other active jobs. And if they do all the jobs need to be terminated, because each one needs their own separate termination. Terminating the primary job doesn't terminate the secondary jobs. And also to look at what the expected job end dates are, and that information can be found in InfoPort. You can submit the termination actions at the same time. So if they have multiple jobs, you can submit them all at the same time. And if applicable, please notify the secondary department or ensure that the employee has notified the secondary department so they submit terminations appropriately as well. The system has been updated and will no longer allow a termination effective date that is greater than the expected job end date. So if it turns out that the person's expected job end date was December 31st, 2015, and you're going in and trying to do a term effective January 1st, 2016, the EPAR is not going to let you do that. In order to submit a termination action with an effective date of January 1st, 2016, you'll first have to submit a job change or edit existing job EPAR to extend the end date. Once that executes, then you can submit the termination action. So it's going to be important to pay attention to those expected job end dates and extend them out if necessary, also so they don't get auto-termed before you intend for them to. Yes?
In terms of primary and secondary jobs, indicator of primary and secondary, if I have, let's say, a student with not full primary appointments get terminated, secondary remains active, will the system know to flip the switch and make secondary primary appointments unless it's integrated?
So the question is, if you have a student or an employee that has multiple jobs and the primary job terminates, but the secondary jobs need to remain active, does the system know to transition one of those secondary jobs to primary, or does a ticket need to be submitted, or does an action need to be taken in Connect Carolina? I get a report daily that shows individuals who have active secondary jobs without primary, and I go in and add a data change row to make that secondary job primary. And what I look for is if they have an EPA student job, that's what gets made primary. If they have all SPA jobs, I look for which has the greater expected job end date. If you find that a job that's been made primary is not the right job, and it should be another one, then you can submit a help ticket and we can easily change the primary secondary indicators to make whichever one should be primary, primary. Good question. Other questions? Fpe and comp changes. So with this situation, timing is really important. If you need to change somebody's FTE, reduce it or increase it, submit a position EPAR first to change that FTE and wait for it to execute. And once that occurs, you'll want to, if the person is paid at an annual rate, you'll want to submit the job change EPAR to update the compensation to tie back to the FTE change. Please don't start the EPAR to change the compensation until after the position has executed. Unlike reports to where it'll get stuck because of data inconsistency, this one won't, and it'll write through and it'll change the FTE back to what it was previously. And so you don't want that to happen. So it would look like the FTE changed from 40 to 30 on 1/1, and then on 1/1 it changed back from 30 to 40. But yet the compensation is lower than what it was. So wait for that EPAR to execute. If the pay rate change action is not completed and the person's paid at an annual rate, then they will be over or underpaid. So the system's going to continue to pay them at that annual rate just based on the new FTE. The compensation does not automatically adjust when you do the FTE change. And pay rate actions don't need to be submitted for individuals who are paid hourly, so your SPA temps and SPA students. However, when you do the position change, make sure you pull in the funding grid. As long as you pull in the funding grid, once that EPAR executes, it'll adjust the percentages appropriately. If it's not pulled in, then it keeps the percentages and the budget amount the same as what it was previously. Yes?
Just want to add a note on the FTE changes. When you allow the position to execute and come back to do the person, you will see that FTE on the person that needs to do the job change. You still have to do the salary. You see the number of times where you said, well, it's there, the FTE there, I don't need to do it.
Right.
So I just want to reiterate that just see the new FTE if it's executed, and that you do have to update the compensation.
Okay. So Teresa, for the people that are listening, just reiterated that make sure that once you do change the FTE on the position, that even though when you start the edit existing job EPAR, it reflects the new FTE, it does not change the compensation. So don't think, oh, it changed the FTE, and then don't go in and change the compensation. It's very important that those two things are done. Questions? When an employee is not in a position, all that needs to be done is the edit existing job or job change EPAR, and you can update the FTE and the compensation in one action. Another reminder, if you have a faculty intermittent employee and they have FTE and they have compensation, but next semester they need to be set to 0 FTE and 0 compensation, then unfortunately that can't be done through the job change. You can't zero out someone's, well, intentionally zero out someone's compensation on the job change form. So the way to do that is to submit a hire action and transfer that person from their faculty intermittent job that has FTE and comp into another faculty intermittent job with 0 FTE and 0 comp. Yes?
So you don't have to them if you're taking them from these values?
No, it doesn't have to be done. If your division prefers for it to be done that way, then it can be, but a lot of departments we found have moved them to 0 FTE, 0 comp, so they remain active in our system, and then can increase the FTE and the compensation when they teach the following semester. Oh, so the question was, do they need to be termed when they're going to 0 FTE, 0 comp? SPA or SHRA positions, again, there's a one-to-one relationship or ratio, 1 employee for 1 position, and that's for temp purposes. And vacant positions, your SPA temps, SPA student positions can be reused once they're vacant. For EPA, EHRA positions, we recommend a 1-to-1 ratio, but it's not required. Part of the reason we recommend it is because in order to have multiple headcounts for an EPA position, several things have to be absolutely identical. And the big ones are the job code, the hours, the rate or compensation for the person or the individuals, and funding distribution. Those all have to be identical for multiple people to be hired into the same position. And note that if you have someone who is hired into a multi-headcount position and they supervise individuals, do not use the position number on that. The individuals that they supervise, don't use that person's position number in their position, because it won't know which person to put in as a supervisor. So if you have a supervisor who's in a multi-headcount position, you want to use their supervisor or their employee ID and put them in as a supervisor ID. And positions are not required for EPA students. Departments can use them if they so choose, but they're not at all required. Please make sure that you're including comments in EPARs. They're really helpful if help tickets are submitted or if we're researching what may be going on with a particular EPAR. Those comments are very valuable. Lump sum payment effective dates. We've started to see that some lump sum payments will come in, for example, effective January 31st, and then another department will submit a lump sum payment effective January 8th. Lump sum payments have mid-stack errors just like your job data has, so those EPARs that come in for lump sum payments with an earlier effective date, we have to recycle and have the department update the effective date to January 31st and submit them through again. So what we're asking is that departments use the first day of the pay period or the pay cycle as the lump sum payment effective date. That said, if it's retro, so you realize in January somebody should have been paid for November, you'd want to use the January 1 effective date, not back to November. And be careful submitting EPARs for lump sum payments too far out in advance, because if other departments come in and are trying to submit EPARs, then they're going to get stuck because of the mid-stack issue. For anyone who's an approver, please be sure to review EPAR fields for accuracy. We've seen some, now that we're in a new year, come in with effective dates in 2015 instead of 2016. We've seen some action reason combinations that don't match up to what information is in the EPARs. And so in addition to the other data that you review in your EPARs before approving, just make sure to give the whole EPAR a look over and make sure nothing is inaccurate. Another reminder about be mindful of mid-stack errors. If you have something that's going out way in the future, then anything that needs to occur before then is going to get stuck at the integration or stuck at workflow admin and may require manual data entry. And then if an employee's FTE is greater than 1.09, so to account for basically their primary job and then any secondary jobs, then be sure to coordinate with other departments. We've seen some people that have 2.0 FTE or 1.5 FTE, and that just, we want to make sure that we're keeping individuals between no FTE and 1.09 FTE. Are there any questions about anything I went over, or any questions about something I didn't go over but you'd like to know about? Okay. I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thank you, Cory. So I will be pretty quick. First, because we are on the cusp of being audited, a security audit, we ask that if any of you happen to be PAT users, if you have not already done so, please go in and do the online training for us. It only takes 27 minutes, but that will certainly help us when the auditors come in and check security and who's done training and what have you. So please do that. It's very simple. You may actually learn a thing or two that you didn't know about. So by all means, it's something you like to pick up, and we find that it's a great resource. And I apologize I did not move forward here. Next thing, by way of reminder, we have the NC4 and W4 are now available online for employees to complete. We don't like paper any more than you do, so by all means, we encourage employees to go out and complete those online. They can do it as often as they want. They're available 24/7. At some point in the future, we may actually make it difficult for them to find paper forms. I'm not entertaining that notion for the next year. So by all means, encourage people to go out there and use the online form. If you have individuals who try to use it and say that they, for whatever reason, they got locked out, the two primary reasons that individuals cannot submit the forms online is, number one, they have a lock-in letter from the IRS, which means the IRS probably was not happy about the number of exemptions that they claimed in the past, so they send us a nice letter and say, this person claimed 30 exemptions, we really think they should only claim 6. We're locking it in until further notice, so if an individual has a lock-in letter, they cannot use it. And then the other instance is if the person happens to be a non-resident alien, because generally non-resident aliens cannot complete the regular NC4 and W4 form. There's usually special tax provisions for them. Yes, question in the back.
Yes, Brian, is it only available to current employees, or if you're hiring a new town for a student, and they do it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So the question was, can new employees use the online NC4 and W4? And probably right now, and that's actually something that is on our to-do list. Probably if they don't have access yet, they're not going to be able to complete the form. So we're looking at ways of possibly providing access to new employees sooner than what is currently available. But if they don't have access to Connect Carolina, unfortunately, they cannot submit it online. And we realize that probably that's where the bulk of the NC4 and W4 forms are actually done by new employees. So at this point in time, if they're brand new to the system, they probably cannot. But hopefully in the near future, that's something that we can tackle. But thank you for the question. That is a good question. The next thing that I wanted to go over with you all is distribution of 2015 W-2s. We are planning on distributing them next week. I'm in the process of developing a memo as sort of a heads up. I'm hoping to get that out on Friday. And there's been a little bit of, I won't say miscommunication, but some folks have made some assumptions already about the distribution of W-2s, and we're not really sure where the information is coming from. If the individual happens to be currently active, that W-2 will be sent for distribution to the department, okay? They will be available in self-service online beginning on February 1st. That's our target at this point in time. If the person is currently inactive, they will actually be mailed out by us to the last home address that is on file in Connect Carolina. That being the case, it's very important that as employees separate, that they let you know when they have moved so their W-2 can get to the right place. So it's actually incumbent upon the HR reps to actually keep that address updated. But what we're hoping is, and Megan and her unit have actually been working very, very hard and very diligently to roll out the guest ID access for inactive employees so that beginning February 1st they can actually look at their W-2 online and if they want to, print it from there. She's doing a great job, and it seems like weekly she is running into various hurdles, and with each hurdle she surpasses, she encounters another one. But we're actually hoping that today she was going to be able to talk about that functionality being available, but we're hoping within the next few weeks that it will be, and we're hoping we actually make the February 1st deadline. I'm not 100% confident at this point in time that we will, but just please know that we're working very diligently. Megan is working very diligently, so hopefully soon after February 1st we will be able to roll that out and they can actually go online and pull down their W-2 and print their W-2 to their heart's content so they don't have to ask us for it. The biggest thing with getting W-2s to inactive employees or to any employees is, number one, there's a lot of confidential information on that. So we do not like to, under any circumstances, fax those out, which people ask us to. Under dire circumstances, when individuals are in other countries, we'll do that, but we actually have to pull the W-2 form into something like Paint, redact the Social Security number, which is actually in 4 places, and then upload it back into Word, create a PDF, and send it out to them. So it's a bit of a gymnastic event as far as from a technical standpoint. So we're hoping, if we're able to roll out that guest ID access account, that will sort of solve that problem. But again, it's not there yet, but we're hoping within the next, if not the next few days, hopefully within the next few weeks. The other thing is, in conjunction with the distribution of the W-2s, we'll be sending out a frequently asked questions document. There's about 15 questions on there, and answers to them. There are some of the more common questions that we get from employees, like, for example, why does the amount that's listed in box 1 not equal my annual salary? We get that every year. You've shorted me, you've taken out too much taxes, or what have you. So there'll be some explanations on the information that's on the W-2. In addition to sending out hard copies along with each packet of W-2s, we'll have that listed on our website. It's not there yet, but it will be there within the next few days. We will begin entertaining requests for duplicates on Monday, February 15th. That's just sort of to give the mail time to get W-2s out to employees and things of that sort. So beginning February 15th. The last thing that I wanted to go over is, because we've actually got some questions about this already, and I'm not happy to say, but fortunately, the Form 1095-C, which is not my office's responsibility, it's actually the responsibility of the Benefits Office. It's the new form that has to go out per ACA guidelines. It's called the Employer Provider Health Insurance Offer and Coverage Form. Because the IRS has sort of been pretty late in getting information out about what's actually supposed to be included on that form, and seems to have been a moving target, they've extended the deadline for that. They do not have to be out until March 31st. The Benefits Office will be responsible for distributing them. And questions about that, and I've spoken to Ashley about this, should be referred to benefits@unc.edu. Okay? So that's not a form that's going to be coming from Payroll, because people have already asked, will that form be distributed with the W-2? No. And then the other question is, will that form be online? And at this point in time, unfortunately, it will not, because UNC as a system has actually contracted with a third party to prepare those 1095-C forms, so they are not an integral part of PeopleSoft, so they will not be available online. Any questions about anything that I went over? Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed the key piece of information. The W-2 for will be distributed to 500,000 as paid for coffee.
Correct.
And in addition, the employee will have access to the self-service.
Right. So the question was, for those of you attending online, for active employees, the paper W-2 will be sent to the department. That is correct. And then they will also be available online for the employee to look at on February 1st. Correct. Question over here?
Question about the inactive status.
Yes.
So if they're inactive as of 12/31/16, it'll be now, or is it? Like I just want to know what the cutoff date is.
Yeah. So if they were.
Yesterday, so I don't know.
Yeah, if you terminated someone yesterday, that will probably be sent out as inactive. So that will go to the department. As of 12/31, you're saying they were active. Since 12/31, they've been made inactive. Most likely that will go to the department. Yes?
Exactly 12/31.
So the question is, what if an employee is terminated exactly on 12/31? That I'm not sure. So, I believe we pulled the status on 12/31. So if they were termed 12/31, they may be now out with the inactive, but I'm not 100% positive with that. Other questions? Yes.
This form 1095C, is that a form that employees will need before filing their taxes?
So the question is, for the Form 1095C, is that something will employees need in order to complete their taxes? I would say for a full-time benefits eligible employee, probably not. I would think they would still be able to do their tax return without it. If the individual is not a full-time benefits employee, I am not really certain. So the IRS, you know, because of everything with the ACA, seems to have been, you know, wait, rush. I don't know, you know, a lot of information about the form. But there actually, when I send out the FAQs, there's actually will be a link to a couple websites that talk about the 1095C form. Okay?
So we're actually out of time. So, Brian, if you can stay for a few minutes because it seems like there's still questions. So if you do have questions, find Brian. He'll be here. The rest of us will be here for just a few minutes, but because we are at time, I do want to allow you guys to leave if you're ready to go. So thanks so much for coming out today in the cold, and we will see you in 2 months. Okay, thanks, everybody.